Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Drumtalkery. I'm Faidi and we have
Dane.
And today we have our first guest.
Am I supposed to introduce myself?
Say something then.
Yeah, something.
And we have our first guest, Christal. Yay, applause. Christal, introduce yourself.
I am
Christal.
I teach drums and I play drums. I've been playing drums since secondary school in percussion, in concert band, and then I started playing in my church during my youth group days, and then I started teaching since 2010.
2010.
Okay.
Oh, that's like 11 years ago.
Yeah,
This
about
And that's your first teaching job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're still teaching now, right?
And I'm still teaching now.
On a private basis? Okay.
The topic we're gonna talk about today is grading.
Grades, yeah. So we're gonna talk about grades. Dane, what's grades?
Correct. What is grades? Okay.
O
so-
level.
O level, yeah, A level, O level. Generally, when we talk about gradings, we talk about drum gradings. Of course, there's also music theory gradings, but generally just drum gradings for this,
Okay.
right? There's actually a couple of different schools. There is LCM, Rock School, Trinity. That's it, right?
And it's not no more.
That's kind of more.
It's still around.
Why would you care?
What do I know?
Yeah. So today what we're gonna discuss about is the all about gradings, about the importance of gradings from Christal as a player and also as a
Educator.
educator.
Yes.
So come Christal, what do you think about gradings?
Anything more specific than
As
that?
I told you that you asked
No,
this.
as an overview lah, as an overview. Yeah.
As an overview, there's pros and cons as to everything.
As an educator,
Yeah.
would you recommend taking grades to your students at this point of time?
At this point of time, for my own personal students, I do not actually recommend exams as the first thing, but that's my personal preference and it doesn't apply to every single student.
Okay.
Like that's just my choice in the students that I'm working with currently.
But why?
So that's just because of my focus is more on developing their musicality and their interest in drums. So there's definitely a place for exams as well, and I do have students who are taking exams, but I wouldn't push it on them. Like they have to ask me that they want and tell me they want to take the exams in the first place.
So if they did not ask, would you recommend it further down the line?
Depends on the student. Most of my students currently are teenage and adult and above. So I think, normally when we think of grading, we think of like kids because kids have that. They're more motivated to do something when they have the grades, and it makes them feel good about themselves to get the achievement. Majority of adults, I wouldn't say all. A majority of adults are more in it for the enjoyment and the hobby, and they don't have the stress of an exam.
Right.
So then it's easier for them to just learn songs they like and play those songs rather than they feel a bit boxed in to take exam requirements.
Right, so in other words, it's based on the intent of what the student took drums for in the first place.
Yeah, definitely.
So in which cases does your teenagers or the adult students take exams? Like when do they ask? In what kind of situations normally for
Usually,
your
I
case?
would say it's students who are maybe they need the certification because they want to enter certain schools. Like they want to use it for DSA. They want to
Yeah.
apply
So what's
to
DSA?
school.
direct school admission?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is to poly?
To
Secondary
secondary
school
school, yes,
usually.
correct.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Correct,
Or
correct,
basically, it's
yeah.
just something that you can put in your CV.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, as much as we would like to say music is art and
Yeah.
you actually need to go out and play with people, you can't put that in your resume as effectively as I got a grade 8 in this and that.
Yeah.
That's actually what I always tell my students. For the adult students that take grades, so I tell them it's like a taxi license.
Yeah.
Right, like the old taxi license. Of course, that analogy is
So
irrelevant.
like a backup in a way that you can
It is a backup, yeah.
monetize your
Because-
skills.
Yeah,
Is
no,
it?
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for me, from my own experience, is the adults who wants to take grades, I will normally encourage them if they want to pursue teaching
Right.
in the future.
Okay.
Because ultimately the grades is you just going for that paper. Yeah, that's what you are trying to show, right? When you take gradings.
But you did mention that grades help them feel better about themselves. So in other words, you are trying to say that it helps them validate their capabilities.
Yeah, so this is a dodgy one because do we
Yeah.
actually want that to be a good
That's
thing?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, it's true that it happens.
Yeah.
Whether you want to promote that as a thing that is actually good
Yeah.
is up for debate, as a lot of things are, of course. But yeah, music is hard to judge, especially at an early stage, right? Like, how does someone know they're actually any good at this? At least if they passed grade 4, they're like, okay, this is a benchmark. I can see that I passed a certain stage, rather than I'm learning all these songs but I'm not playing in any bands. I don't know if I'm any good or not. Like, what stage of a drummer am I at? So exams are a good way you can actually put a certain level to that.
Okay.
Actually, but on the flip side of that, right? So sometimes the gradings, especially for some adult students, they give them a false sense of security as well. Yeah.
That's
So the managing of the expectations is very important. That's what I feel lah. Yeah. For adult students, for kids even the same. Like I have students who are kids. They will be going like, hey, I want to take exams. So why you want to take exam? Because my friend got grade 5. So, okay.
Yes, I get that a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
So to them it's like leveling up in a way.
Yeah.
It is like leveling up, yeah. But sometimes they are what they feel of the technicality in terms of that grading does not really meet like expectations
Correct, yeah.
in the real life.
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, I'm grade 8. Oh, I'm the best drummer in the world, right?
You're not.
And then
lah.
you realize,
You're not.
I'm just saying you're not. You are not.
Well,
What? No,
None
but
of
that
us
is
are.
but that is very often is the case.
Okay, my experience with grades is I only took my graded exams about 3 years ago, and that's well far beyond in my journey as a drummer already.
Yep.
And I took it just because my job paid more.
Because it's free.
No, it wasn't free.
Oh, it wasn't free?
It paid me.
Damn.
It could pay me.
Who's your
slightly more.
employer?
I was actually just going to say that the first category is students needing to apply. The second one is people who actually teach.
Yeah.
And because they need that certification
Right.
to go up a pay scale. And you said that, it's useful when you want to teach, but I would
Correct,
say that is just as, it's kind of like we tell kids, okay, get your
Exactly.
your university degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are you actually using anything you learned in university?
Nope.
No, but
I don't
you
have
still
one,
need,
but,
if you,
I don't have
or
one.
your higher education, or like
all never study
if
one.
secondary school, like O levels, right?
Right.
You take it for the cert just so that you can be like, okay, I got this. Do you actually use the content? No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So for like hiring purposes, you would maybe use a certificate just to weed out certain applications, but you would still need to assess their playing,
And-
their character, things
Yes,
like that.
correct. And that's why I actually don't agree hiring just solely based on gradings, because a lot of people who have gradings, they actually, I wouldn't say that they can't play, but you know,
It doesn't necessarily.
It doesn't
mean
really
that
translate.
to a good performance or being a good teacher
performance.
either ways.
Yeah, exactly. So in that aspect, yes, that is correct. Yeah. So and also because I think different schools like LCM, Rock School, or Trinity, even Trinity has like Rock and Pop and college. They have like varying degrees of technicalities. So a lot of people would just be like, hey, I gotta, because I mean we all agree that Rock and Pop is the easiest, right?
Sure.
if you say so.
Wow, okay.
In this way.
No, but because rock and pop, they don't really like work on
Yeah.
all the rudiments
Yeah.
and stuff. So so with someone having a grade 8 rock and pop, it's the level of technicality or competence is much
That's what I have.
from what?
Which exactly has no reflection to 5D as a
Yeah,
drummer.
exactly. Yeah.
I just took it because
No, exactly.
of the
It's
pay
true,
scale
it's true.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like do employers actually care what school you take it from?
No.
Most of the
Most
time,
of the
I
time,
don't know.
It depends.
Maybe there are some
It
employers who
depends,
actually do. But on that
Of course,
note,
yes, of course.
On
yeah.
that note, like you were saying, like grade 8 drummer might not be the best performer, and even in graded exams, I feel like they are quite lenient. They tend to.
I would think it depends on their mood.
I know
lah,
this
but-
might be this might be a bit controversial, but I feel like they will generally pass a student if they can just finish the piece.
More or less lah. If they can finish the piece smoothly without any major cock-ups, generally it will be a pass. That's why I always tell my students, right? If you get distinction, it's a merit. If you get merit, it's a pass. If you get a pass, it's actually a fail.
Well,
You're a very strict teacher about it.
Yeah, no, but it's true.
Asians.
Yeah, because if you just get a pass, it means that you're just barely like scraping through the
You're
song.
kind
Right?
of
It's
okay.
bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when was the first time that you got your grades?
I got my grades after I started working. So similar
As
reasons,
an educator.
As an educator
Right.
in a music school, yeah.
So
So,
you're-
I got hired without any grades at all.
Based on faith.
Based
alone.
on my playing. As
Right,
in
right.
you had an audition, you
Yeah.
have an interview
Right.
and you see my playing, how I interact with you, and then you hire me.
Right.
And then after
Yep.
that, it's like, okay, now I have seen that you're at this level, you can go take exams.
Right.
And it's more to understand the exam content so you can teach your students
Yeah,
more
exactly.
effectively as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
Do you do? the same?
I did. In fact, I only did the exams when I transitioned full-time teaching into
Okay,
full-time
okay.
teaching, because I knew that it was a piece of paper or at least a qualification that I needed to show
Yeah.
at certain point of time. In my teaching career. So yeah, that was
So as an educator, you were saying that it's totally subjective and depends on the student's intentions. But what about could you give an advice to parents out there? Like, would you want them to send their kids to music schools?
Okay, so
Like-
parents will hopefully know their kids, but I mean, parents have their own opinions on what the kids should do and
right.
shouldn't do. In my experience, sometimes teaching, like I would think, originally I thought that, okay, exams are good for young kids because it gives them structure, something to work for, and then they'll feel accomplishment and hopefully they feel good about themselves. Even if, they pass, they think I can do well in drums. And it does work that way for some of them. I've been very encouraged when kids, like they don't do well in school, but they're like, wow, I can get a distinction for drums, and then I'm good for something in life, even though I have like C's and D's in my report card or whatever. So there's that part which is good, but there are also kids that I've taught, and then they start thinking that drums is this thing that you have to get perfect because we keep drilling the exam pieces because you don't want them to fail. And then they get so obsessive, and then they get very depressed when they can't play something correctly, and then they lose that creative joy that they have when they play the drums.
Right, which is the whole point in the first place, right?
So mostly I prefer teaching older students, but then I do have some younger kid students. And the fun thing about seeing them is that it's just stuff that makes noise, and they just enjoy making different sounds on it. But when you send them for exams, it's like, no, don't hit all those things. You have to hit just this one, exactly here,
on that piece
what's
of
written here. And then once they're forced into that mold, it's so hard to teach them to be creative after that.
So it limits them.
I think one of the
But it
problems,
depends on the kids,
one of the problems with a lot of kids taking exams is also because most of the time you're just learning these few songs or these few pieces, and a lot of time is for the entire year. So it's very easy for them to get worn out and not really understand like what is the purpose of playing drums, because very often they don't actually know the song. Right, they just choose which is the easiest song, or which is the song they feel is the nicest out of all those.
It starts to become a very task-oriented affair.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, correct. So it to reinforce the fact that yes, they do lose that creative aspect because of that, and they stop exploring the drums.
The reason I asked this question was because if I put myself in a parent's position and I'm sending my kids to a music school, I want to see some form of a tangible form of progress. Right. So grades is one of them. If not, I'm just sending my kids to music school and like I'm just burning cash, and I wouldn't know whether he's actually improving. Right.
That's why I think it's a lot of that is how the educators manage the parents, because progress is not only through gradings. Of course, some parents have a very fixed mindset that this year is going to get grade 1, next year is going to get grade 3, that kind of thing. But I think a lot of it is about setting expectations for the parents.
Are these parents usually musically inclined themselves? Do you know? Like as an educator and a music school owner, in terms of demographics, what do you see? Is there a certain pattern?
Most of the parents who are more grade oriented.
Are they usually more musically inclined in the first place, or they don't really know much?
It's actually quite a bit of mixture actually, because it has to depend, because even if they are musically inclined, some of them, let's say if they are classically trained, right, they went through the entire route for grading, and that grading system worked for them, right, and that's why they know that they want to be able to recreate that for their kids. But on the other hand, for those who are non-musicians, they would have the same expectation, because they will like, in school, right, this subject are going to get A, right?
Or they hear of their friends, my friend is grade 8 in piano.
Right. Like, not even in gradings, but in terms of like exams, like regular written exams, academics, right? You can see the grades improving. But when they send them to the music class, sometimes they do want to see the gratification.
So how do we then make use of grades to further progress the student's potential in terms of performance and not have it as a limitation?
One thing, or you said advice for parents earlier, I would say is also related to what you said. Have a better communication, or as good communication as you can with your child's drum teacher, and make sure they're taking an appropriate grade. Like I would say appropriate in the sense that they can prepare for it in a couple months and do well, not like you have to mug for 1 whole year or 2 years for that grade. That means it's probably too challenging for them at that point, and there would be probably a more fulfilling journey for your child to learn other things and work towards that in future. Like, don't rush it. It just sucks all the joy out of it, and then they'll end up stuck on a few pieces for like 2 years, trying to do something that's just too difficult for them. And then the thing about exams is a lot of times, if you try to do something that's too difficult for you, you compromise on a lot of the technical foundation. And that just makes it even harder to progress at a later grade. So don't rush it.
Yeah, that's why I think to further add on to the point, that's why the execution, like we all know, the exams is just quite straightforward. It's just 3 pieces, maybe some rudimental pieces. But how and where those applications and how those exercises lead up to those execution is very, very important. Yeah, if you just head right into it, read the notes and then just whack it. Yeah, very often you're gonna end up with like bad techniques because you don't actually go through the proper route. Yeah, and which is why I always advise the parents because a lot of parents will ask me like, hey, okay, is my son ready for gradings? So I'll try my best to explain to them that right now what we're doing is building the fundamental interest for kids especially, which is the most important thing. Yeah, because even if his progress is slow, it's fine. Right? As long as the interest is fun, correct. Because at a certain point of time, the interest will snowball, and he will be able to be.
It could go either ways. It could be.
He will be able to
it could go south really fast.
Correct. So the grading thing, and a lot of parents don't know that you can actually jump grades, right? So you don't have to go like, oh, this year I'm going to go grade 1, right? I
did too.
Straight to 8. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to take like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Why waste the money when you know your potential is beyond just grades?
Exactly.
You brought up a very good point about parents having an open communication with teachers, and I think that's something very not really looked into in a sense. Like, okay, if I'm thinking if I send my kid to a drum class, I will just drop him at the door of the music school and
bye, I'm gonna go drink my coffee.
But open communication is so important. It shouldn't just be like, okay, I'm just gonna pick up my kid after that and we're off.
It is.
You need to have a really honest, open communication with your teacher to know what your child is actually going through in that 40 or 45 minutes in that room.
That's why I think the communication goes both ways, like instructors initiating a conversation or the parents initiating a conversation. Because I actually, speaking of this, I suddenly remembered, I actually had like a couple of inquiries, right? So they will call in and then they'll be like complaining about his drum teacher, and I'm like, hey, what's wrong?
Is it you?
No. Nobody complaining to me about me. But they'll be complaining about the drum teacher, and then my first response is always, did you talk to the drum teacher or not?
And
very often, no, they don't. They will just assume based on the performance
of the child.
Of the child,
The student,
like, 1 year he learned 2 songs only. I don't know what the teacher is doing.
Right.
Maybe you should ask the teacher, right? So a lot of times I think some parents, they don't want to they don't like to question.
Right. So uncomfortable,
Or they're probably just too busy. Like,
right.
Drumming is not part of their world.
It's my advice as an educator as well. If you are paying that much money for your child's education to further his skills as a musician, I think it's worth looking into having spent a bit more time, not just with your child, but your teacher as well, to develop a good personal relationship as well.
I agree. So other than the education side, right? Like, has grades ever impacted your other side of your career? Not like not playing. Playing. Right? You guys thinking what?
No, I don't even know.
Playing and teaching. Other side, playing one.
Okay, performance.
Performance,
How has grades affected your performance? I think that's what Din is trying to say in that past 2 minutes.
Yes, sorry.
How grades have affected my performance is when I was practicing for exams, I didn't have time to practice for other things, including performing. That's how it affected.
So it restricted you. Okay. Interesting.
No, because I think you were at the point, I think we all were at the point where we actually didn't need the grades.
Yes,
like in terms of like the playing. Like we already.
I probably was still at the growth.
Hypothetically,
part.
right? If you did not take the grades, would you be where you are today?
I would say a mix of it. Like, I would say at that point, it actually did build my confidence a lot because, in perspective, right, I just started part-time drum teaching at this point, and then I didn't know anything about formal drum education. I'd actually never taken a drum lesson in my life.
Right.
So I've never taken formal drum lessons.
Right.
So I was just teaching. So I felt very clueless and kind of lost at that point. And so when my employer tells me that, okay, I think you can take grade 4, I'm like, okay, I think I can take grade 4.
But why 4 though?
Yeah.
Why not just go for 5?
Well,
let's go for 8.
it was an Ansgar thing. Like there's
okay.
So then after I did pretty well for that, because it's my first drum exam ever in my life,
Right.
never done any formal education, right? So then the next year he's like, okay, I think you should take 6. And this was a strange story because actually I was overseas and then someone pulled out of the exam and I was like, oh, we need someone to take over this, otherwise they lose all the money which has been paid anyway. So it's like, okay, Christal, take this drum exam.
So it's just in the slot.
Yeah, so I just filled in 2 weeks of prep.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Nice.
So 2 weeks prep for grade 6 and then I think I got the highest distinction thing.
That's good.
I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Humble brag.
Then the next year it's like, okay, you should just go take grade 8 now. Then I'm like, okay, sure. So this is like 3 years in a row. And then, so at that point was I even playing in any bands? I can't even remember. I think I was only playing for church and then just like pop rock gigs kind of thing. So it did help build confidence because I hadn't really found myself as a drummer yet. So at least I'm like, okay, I'm good enough for grade 8 and I took the diploma the year after that. So it felt like something like, okay, it does help your confidence, I'll say that. Like at least I'm acceptable at a certain level. And then after that I could, go and explore more music, and then I started being in an originals band and writing music and stuff like that. So technicals wise, did it necessarily help me? I mean, yeah, I guess I learned how to read better.
True.
I'll come back to diploma later though, but you were saying that by taking grades it limited your time as a drummer in your journey.
Yeah.
At that point of time at least.
Yeah, at that point.
Okay, here's my own experience. When I was taking grades, right, as I was preparing for it, I realized that a lot of foundational aspects of drumming was pretty weak for myself. Like it could be the simplest things, and I know I can do things way beyond what's written in that paper, but when I had to limit myself to only what's written, I was like, oh my god, this is not that easy after all. Do you encounter the same thing?
Oh, when I was preparing for the exams?
It's like, no.
No, like not too easy.
No, I know that if I spend enough time on it, I'll really get it done. But of course it's not like a instinct.
But you would have thought like where you are at that point of time, you could just like look, sight read and like be done with it.
Oh, of course not. No. That wasn't my expectation when I went in actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what
when
lessons
I
did you take?
I took the Trinity College.
Oh,
Yeah.
not rock and pop.
Yeah. What? Yeah, no, but I knew that like one look at the score, I knew that I can't sight read and play that stuff. I know that a certain amount of time needs to be put into it. Yeah.
But anyway, you were saying about diploma. Is diploma any different from the usual grades?
That was the ANSCA diploma. So basically it was 3 really long pieces and really detailed pieces, and then there was a lot of talk about like music history and drumming history and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
And then you
Okay.
have to like talk about the pieces as well, like analyze musically and be able to explain the structure of it. Yeah.
So you will only be awarded the diploma. Okay, so how do they test you? Is it like in one sitting as well?
It's one sitting, but there are 2 examiners.
Oh, yeah, that's not too bad actually.
So there's the theory aspect and then there's the practical aspect.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
NSCA one, does it have like a performance diploma or
Yeah,
an
that was the
teaching-
performance
That was the
diploma,
performance diploma.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did you look into a diploma for Trinity?
I did actually consider taking a diploma, but at one point of time I realized that it was actually quite redundant.
Why so elaborate?
No, okay. So to me, and it's the same that when I advise my students, most of the schools, what they are looking for is actually grade 6 practical and grade 5 music theory. Yeah, a lot of the music schools. So I would rather the student spend more time, go and take a grade 5 music theory. Yeah,
ABRSM.
and ABRSM, yeah.
Yeah.
And then go and get a grade 8. You get a wider understanding of music theory, more applications. Yeah, and then you get a job. To me, gradings is about getting a job. Yeah.
Well.
And Drumtalkery.
No, unfortunately we don't look at gradings. But,
That's good.
yeah. No, I actually don't believe looking at looking at gradings to hire. But anyway, yeah. That's not it's either for a job or for school, for CCA. Yeah, it's all practical applications.
I haven't heard of CCAs actually looking at grades.
They do actually, some of them.
Outside bands perhaps. I'm talking about like concert bands. They like, okay, do you have a grade 5 at least? And okay, here, can come and audition.
Yeah. They got. I had parents like send me a form, and it's a very weird looking form. I don't know how to fill it up, but anyway, yeah.
You know what? I have been seeing a lot of job listings as an educator in like international schools, for example. Right, they're actually looking at degrees now as a standard.
I see.
Yeah. So I'm
No, I think because international school. No, international school is a bit different because they got budget. No.
so
Fair point.
in other words, the employer is willing to pay for someone
No, and it's true because they have a certain level of standard they need to uphold. So which explains the they then wanting a degree holder. But like in terms of like the grade 6 practical and the grade 5 music theory, that's like the neighborhood. Yo. Like we're talking neighborhood.
Okay. Sure.
Not
Neighborhood gangster.
yeah.
Well, I thought it was quite interesting that you mentioned when you took grade 8, you found out that there were fundamentals missing. Like I would say that another reason for people to take exams would be if you're at a relatively high level of drumming, but you feel very stuck and you don't know where to go. Like you have nothing particularly that inspires you.
The plateau.
The plateau, and also that you don't have anything that is your niche that you want to focus in. Because, for example, if someone, let's say JD Beck, like he has his sound, he has his thing.
Yes.
He might not be able to play grade 8 Trinity pieces in sight read, for example, right? And he would still have to probably take, at least a couple hours off to go work on it and play it. And so let's say at an earlier stage of his drumming, it would probably benefit him more to hone his own sound and then find gigs and play and get experience and network, and then he's now JD Beck. If he had bothered taking grade 1, 2, 3, or 5, 6, 7, 8, it'll just be a waste of time. In his context, right?
Or he may not even be JD Beck.
Yeah, exactly. Because then he might be like, oh wow, I can't do this Latin thing and this samba thing, and then get sucked into a whole other world, trying to do everything instead of being himself. So, but not all of us have that like very unique calling, and for some drummers, you just find yourself just kind of stuck at a plateau, and that's when the exam might open up different avenues, and you try different genres that you might not have tried before. So that could be one thing it's good for as well.
To push them through past the plateau.
And also you might discover different genres that maybe you find an interest in. Like if you're very stuck with only listening to a certain kind of music, and then after a point it doesn't inspire you anymore, but you don't know where to go from there.
Oh, this hits home actually. I was at that point of time. I was at a plateau. And,
like being at the plateau.
And the grades kind of pushed me in a different direction.
Like in terms of the plateau thing, or in terms of that, I actually feel that, of course, for some people in my work, but in my own personal experience, gradings actually, because I have been on a couple of plateaus, I feel that what pushes me out of my plateau was inspiration, and gradings did not give me inspiration at all.
So what gave you inspiration? Drum competition.
Competitions is one actually. Competitions is one. Yeah, in fact, during the competition, when I joined the Singapore Drum Fest. Yeah, sorry, sorry, Boon. When I was joining the competition, it actually pushed me out of my plateau a lot. Yeah, I actually had a great sense of improvement from the preparations. But what actually pushed me out of the plateau for the other times is actually learning with other drummers actually. Yeah, to get inspired by their style. Yeah, I think to me maybe that's for me, but not for everybody, right? Like to have that personal touch, and then have a feel of what other people are doing and what other styles, and then you explore that sound on your own. But not because exams really turn me off at that point of time. At that point of time. Yeah, because ultimately it's an expression, and grading helps to find more ideas sometimes. But ultimately, it's about how you want to be able to express and get inspiration on how people express, and build that as part of your own.
We're talking about expression, and also meet other band members, other instruments.
Exactly.
Make music, not just drumming.
Exactly.
Drumming.
That's why exercises are exercises, but ultimately, when you're playing, you're not doing exercises.
This reminds me of the one of the biggest gripes I have about grades, which was, if you all know that one person out there has a piano grade, but has never performed on the stage before. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
And are also not useful in the band at all.
Basically, come play in time. Come play in context. Don't be that piano guy. Don't be that kid.
That guy.
Don't be that guy.
We're not bashing pianists. You guys are great.
We love your pianists.
I definitely learned the most when I first joined the originals band and I started coming up with my own parts. Because then it forced me not to just listen to the drums in a song, but to listen to the other instruments and then think about how to write parts based on that. And then that reflected how I listen to other songs, because now I'm not just trying to hear what the drummer is playing, I'm trying to hear why the drummer is playing what he's playing. What did he hear in the guitar and the bass that made him play this? And then that whole reverse engineering process is what fascinates me a lot.
And make you a better educator as well.
Definitely.
And that's the thing that you don't get from playing with backing tracks.
How to practice active listening if you are preparing for grades?
Ooh, if you're preparing for grades.
Yes. So the song is, say example, Rosanna. I had to choose that song, but yeah, anyway, example the song is Rosanna, and that's the graded exam piece. How do you practice active listening right now?
Instead of just looking at the score they give you, I would actually listen to the original track.
Okay.
Right? So you actively listen to
That's right.
how the drummer played.
Right.
And I mean, the number one thing that a lot of students don't realize is that they need to practice listening. Like, you need to practice how do you hear the hi-hat parts in a song? How do you hear the snare? How do you hear the bass drum? And then how do you hear the bass guitar, right? Can you hear the synth parts in the song? Can you recognize when the instrumentals are taking over? What are the sections?
Right.
I mean, for most people, the vocal line is the most obvious, but all the other nuances take a bit of training and focus to tune your ear.
And how they correlate.
Yeah.
Right?
The thing about drums is it's such a new instrument. We don't have hundreds of years
Yes,
like
that's right.
classical piano has. So this is why drum grading, I find, is more of a unique entity than, say, piano grades, which are a bit, they've got tons of years of experience.
Yeah,
The pieces are the pieces. They are classics,
Correct.
done and dusted.
And they have methods, like, that the Suzuki method and all that.
Oh,
right?
right.
But what do we have as drummers?
Drums are like,
A method.
oh, and parents get so upset sometimes when they switch exam boards and they're like, oh, he took grade 6 of this easier exam board.
Right.
Can you do grade 7 of this more difficult exam board? We're like, it's a little... Well, let's try. And then you find out the kid can't even play grade 2. And then how do you break it to the parents? So that's another difficult thing with the exam. And the student will also feel horrible. Because he thought he was a grade 7 drummer. Now he's a grade 2 drummer.
Which goes back to the unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Okay, so in summary... okay, grades yay or nay? In general.
I will be the devil's advocate and say nay for me.
Yep, nay.
I'll say yay actually. If you have the money, why not? I mean, it kind of does you no harm.
But
Okay,
it wastes your time.
Yeah,
It wastes your time.
It might
like
waste
what
your
they
time.
said. Yeah, it might. It depends.
Oh, it will take your time. Let's not say waste. It will take
Yeah, it
your
will take time. But
Depends if you have something better to do at that time or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like actually practicing drums
With
beyond
other people who play music.
With your
or
friends,
make music.
if you have any.
All right.
So that's the first episode of Drumtalkery.
Talkery. Bye bye.
Boom.